It is 6:31, so I'm going to call the meeting to order. Can we have a roll call, please?
All right. Director Eldridge.
Here.
Director Salo.
Here.
Director Weslowski.
Here.
All right, looks like we have a quorum. Any public comments for items not on the agenda?
Oh,
I got
does that mean I have to raise my hand? I still can't
No,
do that
you're
well
good.
on this. This tablet is like really, I have a new tablet and I still can't figure out how it works. Yeah, I just wanted to say, I hope everybody stays safe and healthy, and hopefully we'll get a vaccine pretty soon, but we made it through 8 months. Hopefully we'll go through another 4. So we'll see.
I know. They're talking about tightening up restrictions and stuff again.
No, we
Oh,
may
yeah.
go down again another
Hopefully not.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Well, we're all being bad. We're not wearing our masks at this meeting.
Yeah, you can't catch it over the internet, so that's good.
Socially distanced.
Right.
You are. You guys are so distant. Oh, you hurt my feelings. You're so distant. Sorry.
Right.
Well, I got a comment.
Oh yeah.
So as a member of the public, I did want to recognize, and we'll do this again officially next meeting, but again, this is Jordan and Miriam's last meeting. And I wasn't sure if you guys are going to come next meeting, so I'm going to take my chance and just say thank you for your service.
Yeah, I think I'll probably log in and see you guys move. Awesome. Thank you, Kevin.
You'll always be welcome.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you,
All right.
Miriam. Thank you, Kevin.
Welcome.
I mean, thank you, Justin. Justin, that's the wrong name. Sorry.
Jordan.
Oh my God.
It's okay.
I always call you Justin.
I get all kinds of words.
Jordan.
That's the
Jordan's
nicest
fun.
I've gotten recently.
Oh.
All right, so moving on to the consent calendar. Does anybody want to pull an item off the consent calendar?
I move to approve it.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion? Seeing none. Roll call. Or roll call.
All right. Director Eldridge.
Yes.
Director Salo.
Yes.
And Director Weslowski.
I have to say this since I moved. I should, let's say. Yeah.
So is that a
Let's say
affirmative?
that's an affirmative.
Okay. Moving down to presentations and reports, receipt of the November General Manager's Report. So Kevin.
All right, we'll go with the quick version, no closures. That's pretty good. We did we were a polling station. That was a lot of fun.
Wow.
It was a little bit different in 2020, not just because of COVID, but because the polling stations now do 4 days instead of 1 day. And so there's just a whole lot more planning, and I definitely have to say they were very well organized. It was very nice to see, and so they came out. And other than that, we're working on preparing for the upcoming audit. We've been kind of fiddling with the lap swim hours a little bit. We kind of went into low gear briefly because that's what we normally do. Plus, we had a few scheduling issues as our staff was leaving. But it was clear that there's actually quite a lot of continued demand, which is unusual. So we've stepped up again to try to accommodate that. So now we're doing Monday through Friday, what we extended by an hour every day during the weekdays. And then we also have weekend hours, which we've never done in this season before.
Oh.
So it's pretty nice, and it's full. It's full all the time.
So you added weekend, and it wasn't open before?
It was open, but then we closed it down because normally we do close it down plus some staffing issues.
Oh, right.
But it was just the hours that we had just weren't enough. It was, really, really, really too low. So we said, okay, we got to figure something out. And we did. And I think there's still room to open up more, but it just as staffing allows. So.
Right. Right. And it was full this morning when I was there. And now that my buddy's turned the heat off for his pool and I'm trying to get lots, I'm getting enough. Not every day, of course, but that's okay. The other thing is opening up Saturday is great because we have one day a week when we're actually open in the afternoon instead of 7 o'clock in the morning when it's 32 degrees.
Correct. Yep.
So,
Yeah.
most of the people who are showing up are older from what I can see. So I think they appreciate being warmer. But I'm glad we had at least Saturday. And hopefully we won't dive so far down in the color scheme of counties that we'll have to close at some point. But I think you'll be able to keep Saturdays maybe until we're probably still going to close for 2 weeks in the winter like we usually do.
That's right. Well, not 2 weeks. I think what we're going to do is we'll continue as we are now with the weekday schedule, the weekend schedule. And then it's really the last 2 weeks where there'll be a little bit of interruption. We'll probably cut the Saturdays and then just the Thursday, Friday of Christmas and New Year's.
Thanksgiving, yeah.
And Thanksgiving, yes. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's good. I told the lady this morning, I said, we normally close for a couple weeks out of the year, but that's all. She was really glad she said, this is great, so.
Right.
Anyway. So, hey, thank you to you and everybody else for all the effort you're doing to keep us open. We know it's hard enough to keep a restaurant open, let alone a pool. So
yeah,
thank you.
Well, but luckily, the thing that's really helping out is that swimmers are coming, they're showing up, and they're not taking breaks. So if we started to see there was a lot of holes, then we'd have to start cutting back. But that's just not what we're seeing. So.
Yeah, but there's nowhere else for them to go that I know of.
Campbell is open again, and I think Santa Clara is open again. But those are the 2 outdoor pools. I think all the indoor ones are they're toast for now.
I won't go to an indoor pool.
Yeah, I wouldn't either.
So I have a question about the bamboo HR.
Sure. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So so is the only issue with that program the performance evaluation, or?
That was one of the main reasons that we picked up the Bamboo HR, was that we really wanted to have really a tight HR program that could track pretty much everything in one place. And so once we realized that the evaluations were not going to work out, and the discipline part of it too isn't super tight, like it does it, but it's not great. And so that was it. The things that are really good with Bamboo is their performance is really good. It's just that you can't do it in the speed that we need. But their onboarding portion is really phenomenal as well. So it's a cool program. We'd love to use it one day, but I think that for the price, it just wasn't, I think that we were better off going with a plan B.
Did we pay anything for this?
Oh, it was like maybe like 1 month, $100 and something for 1 month, which is okay. I mean, we got to look at it. We got to, use different functions. And I think what we've actually done is we've taken some of those ideas and we've worked it into our alternate plan.
And then
not a total loss.
In addition to that, the digital overhaul. So I think it's great that you're doing that. I mean, we live in a time where, put everything on digital. Now, you said that the end result will be both more secure, but also accessible and transparent.
Yes.
Does that include, well, first of all, I don't know what being more secure, what that entails, but is this pretty much going to have personnel issues on it?
With the digital overhaul?
Yeah, I'm curious about what the security, what that means.
So there's actually, this digital overhaul is kind of a very shorthand term to talk about a very, very big, wide-ranging project. So part of it includes what we're going to be doing. Let me talk about the Bamboo HR thing first, and then I'll segue into the digital overhaul.
You down to the page with your report on it, because
yes, yeah, good idea. Sorry, do that. Here we go.
I don't have a page.
Yes.
There we go.
Bamboo HR. Okay, so these two are actually kind of linked. One of the reasons why we were looking at Bamboo HR in the first place was because we're using physical files in a filing cabinet right now, which is kind of old school. And one of the downfalls of that is that papers, they have to go into the files. Sometimes you need to pull them out. And if you ever wanted to look at, metadata, if you wanted to take a look and say, okay, all these people are getting the same kind of evaluation, you'd have to take all the files out, compare it, tabulate it by hand, and figure out, okay, hey, you know what, we need to do a training on whatever, item X. Everyone's having trouble with this, we need to work on it. That's not really a realistic process. And so we wanted to have a system where we could put it all in the same place, access it, see it, and be able to pull data out to better train our staff. Whether that's disciplinary, whether that's doing good things or continuing to do good things, the data wasn't in a way that we could access it meaningfully. In addition, of course, there's always the problems with paper stuff going missing and whatnot. So we wanted something that was really foolproof and also secure. Now, on the security front, we use Google Drive for a whole lot of things. The problem is that it's connected to our main email, which a lot of our staff has access to, and people just log in on our front computer. And so anyone could go in and just delete our entire everything. And that's not very secure at all.
Right.
And so what this is doing is it's multiple things. So the first one is that we're getting a domain server. So what that's going to allow us to do is every single staff who needs access is going to have their own desktop, which they can log into from any terminal. So they walk up to any computer, they log in using their password, their own desktop gets loaded onto the front with complete and up-to-date software on it. And as soon as they step away, 5 minutes later, boom, it closes down. And if someone else needs to use the computer, no problem, they just log in and boom, pops up. Right. So that's a lot more secure. And that would allow us to move a lot of our HR type documents online, because now we're not worried about someone just going into our drive and taking a look at whatever documents are in there. Make sense?
Yeah, so
now in addition,
I'm guessing that you would also have a system for backing up what's on the, digital. You'll have a system to back it up in case something happens with it.
Server.
Yeah.
Yep. To that, the other nice thing about it is that the permissions would be set up so that there's different levels of security access, and it's really easy to switch someone in and switch someone out with the new system. In any case, so that's kind of an idea of how it would work. All the new board members would get access to this, and we'd reorganize our Google Drive as a result. And as part of that, we're going to take a lot of the files that should be public and just, boom, put them right up on our website. So for example, all the board policies, a lot of the administrative procedures that are corresponding with the board policy. So if we have like a budget policy that's a board policy, we might have the corresponding administrative procedure for it also on the website. So you can kind of take a look at what the board policy says, and then how staff is implementing it, which I think is a lot cleaner and more transparent. Now, the other thing that this is going to allow us to do is, instead of doing a clean and nice HR platform, which is also expensive, we found that really the only way we're going to be able to get the functionality that we need is to do it ourselves using spreadsheets. Now, we can do this using permissions and having one spreadsheet access another spreadsheet, but cover up certain information. So that way, people who need to know certain sections of information can get access to it, but not everything. It's a lot of trial and error, and there is a bit of upkeep. You got to design the sheets, you have to troubleshoot the sheets, and sometimes formulas get moved and it just looks really funky. So we'll have to. It's a little bit of a work in progress, but that's how we've done our registration online, and it's worked pretty well. So. So to give you an idea, let's say someone has some good evaluation, the supervisor could enter in a Google form their evaluation of the employee, and that shoots off into an Excel spreadsheet, which is in a secure location. So they can enter information in, but they can't change it, and then only
can they view it?
Access. If it's a manager, yes. If it's other people who don't have authority, no, they can't.
Okay.
So it's a big project with a whole lot of different moving parts, but I think the end result, again, more secure, better transparency, and and it
And
allows us to
regularly
have that
backed
HR
up
system.
in case you lose something.
Well, actually, and the thing is there's only going to be 3 people who can actually remove anything. So it'll be
Okay.
hard to lose everything.
Okay. Thank you.
So I'm really excited about that.
Second
Yeah,
what,
Steve.
yeah, the second what Jordan was saying, backing it up on a, let's say a weekly basis, if not a daily basis, to a hard drive that you then disconnect when it's not being used as a backup drive is a very good, because then you are immune from being taken hostage by
Ransomware.
Right.
because
Yeah.
so that's what I do is I keep a local hard drive that automatically backs up because I'm running on a Mac, and it does it without me thinking. But in this case, doing it explicit and bouncing back and forth between 2, 4, or 8 gig terabyte hard drives is a good idea, because it's cheap. It's less than $200, and we'll talk about that more offline. But
Yeah, and I don't think that this will be a serious problem, but we have been looking at the reports on Russian interference in elections and how they are accessing data, and then you have to pay a ransom for them not to release it or get that information back. But I mean, that's not to say that we would necessarily be a target because we're pretty small. But,
we don't have, because we're a target for any kid who's just screwing around with the internet,
right.
and learning. They'll go, oh, this is an easy site. I'll play with their data.
Right.
Yeah. Well, eventually,
Go ahead.
I think what's probably going to have to happen, and I can't say when this would happen, but eventually it would be a good idea to start getting the physical key fobs, because those are very effective as a multi-factor authentication step.
True. Eventually, but you're picking the right time of the year to do the digital overhaul, because it's our slowest season before we hopefully open up in the spring. So good.
Right.
And then one last comment, if I may. For the upcoming winter work plan, I don't know if any of you have seen what that looks like, but I just want to say Kevin has done a fantastic job getting something together, so the 4 new board members coming in next month can get up to speed. So I really appreciate that. Have you been able to chat with them?
Not yet, but I really need to get them scheduled for that so that they can I want them to have the full orientation before the actual meeting.
I hope they don't back out.
I know.
that would be a problem. Okay, I appreciate it.
Still surprised they didn't make it to this meeting, at least one of them. But anyway.
Yeah.
All right, anything else? All right, we'll move to discussion and action items. Number 6, second reading of the resolution repealing and adopting district policies. This came before us last month, and so this is just the routine approval. Does anybody have questions about it? Does someone want to make a motion?
I'll move to approve them. Approve the resolution, excuse me.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right. I apologize. I should have, I don't know if I did this out of order, but is there any public comments?
No, I figured after a while bamboo was not a plant, and that you guys had a system, and for somebody who hasn't worked in tech for 20 years, David, you guys are really doing a great job with it. I mean, I heard words in there that we've got so much brain power in the staff and the board. It's really, really refreshing. So yes, you guys are going to keep us safe. So good.
All right. Thank you. All right. Any other discussion on this item? Going once, twice, sold. Can we have a roll call vote?
All right. Director Eldridge?
Yes.
Director Salo?
Yes.
And Director Waslowski?
Yes.
All right.
All right. That passed unanimously. Now to Item number 7, second reading of resolution in support of International Seed Day. This also came before us last month. So is there any questions that someone has? Steve?
Well, I assume we're going to probably pass it anyway, but it's a long. I can't believe how long this thing is. But anyway, I also my only reservations are that I'm not sure how many other people are going to come up and ask us to do the same thing for some other great cause. I mean, it's a good cause. I can't gainsay that, but I'm not sure it has any real effect, you know. But I'm not going to vote against it because there's nothing wrong with it. It's just huge, you know, and it goes into
video doorbell.
So anyway.
Yeah, and we could probably in the future, Steve, maybe think of policy of, you know, how many whereases or therefores or something.
I'm not sure.
I lifted this from, it was passed by, I think, Oakland City Council and some other cities as well. So I had just lifted it from that.
Boy, they sure have a lot of professional writers they pay to put this thing in. Anyway, I'm a little leery that it sets a bad precedent because we could get stuck doing these ad infinitum, but in the true nature of things,
Video doorbell.
that doesn't happen very often. So
Hey, stop that. Stop that.
What business do you have doing this is all I'm asking. But
So Miriam, do you want to make the motion?
Making the motion to pass the resolution. Is that, I can't see the top of it.
In support of International Seed Day.
Yeah. Right. So making a motion supporting the annual seed exchange.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right. Any discussion, public comment?
Good idea. I mean, it's like we need, she's a master gardener, and I think the more information we get about this type of thing, who knows, we're going to be back all gardening and running our own backyard gardens at some point. So I think this is a really good thing that she brought up.
As long as the seeds don't have a Chinese address.
Oh, geez.
I understand that a lot of our seeds do come from China.
Oh, okay. Well, at least random when you're not expecting it.
Okay. Well, meaning that's why you would want to share seeds with your neighbors.
Right.
Keep it local.
Any other comments? Can I get a roll call, please?
All right, Director Eldridge,
Yes.
Director Seeler,
Yes.
Director Wasowski.
Yes.
Yeah, and then maybe Kevin, if you want to bring back next month or in the future, something about the whereases and therefores in terms of length. All right.
All
So
right.
item number 8, first reading of Board Policy Amendment 1025, delegation of authority to the general manager. Kevin?
All right. So one thing that we're doing differently going forward is creating a board policy and then administrative procedure. Generally, the board policy directs staff or delegates authority to staff to do something. And then the administrative policy kind of elaborates on how that's going to be accomplished. The problem is that there is a policy on how board policy is reviewed, but there's not a policy on how the administrative procedure is being reviewed. And it's a really good idea to take a look at it because just to make sure that the administrative policy that I'm coming up with to fulfill the board policy is actually in line with what you had intended. ultimately the board is responsible for policy outcomes, and so it'd be really helpful to make sure that we're really on the same page there. So so what this does is I've added just a little bit of text in that would essentially make it so that the administrative policy would be included in the agenda, not voted on, but just seen at the very least, either as a consent calendar item or whatnot, so that the board has a chance to comment on it. And if it's not what the board's intention was, then there's an opportunity for comment, or at least a question to say, hey, why did we do it like that? And that's totally fine. That's a relevant question, and there's always an answer for it. So so that would be really good. And I think if this passes, then
stop
Oh.
that. Hey, stop that.
so
Sorry.
if this passes, what would happen at that point
Rocky?
is we'd spend about a year going through the administrative policy and procedures that already exists. And that would mostly be because if we did it all at once, it would be an insane amount of paperwork, and it would quite frankly, it would be a little bit too much, I think, all at once. So let's take a look, and it's just this text here in red.
Is there a motion, or does
I'll move.
anybody have questions?
I'll move to approve the policy.
Oh, it's a first reading.
Okay.
Oh,
Well, the
right.
first-
Any questions or discussions from the members of the public?
No.
Steve?
I think it's pretty well worded. I think you did a good job on that paragraph, and the intent, the whole reason for doing this is a good thing. And this gives Jordan a quick break so he can take care of the dog, who seems to give him a hard time. Some animal. Anyway, yeah, I think it's really well worded, and giving, putting it in the consent calendar seems like the logical place to put these things, and then that's because anything in the consent calendar going forward, we can always say, hey, what is this? And that's a perfect place to put it rather than break it out as something separate. So I encourage that. In fact, you could have put that in here to say, it'll be part of the consent calendar. You might want to think about that. There might be ramifications. Not saying is fine, except that the one thing I've learned from Jordan is that if we don't write it down, we don't know how we're supposed to do things. Yeah. So, and he's right. He's right. Anyway.
As long as the board doesn't necessarily get bogged down with micromanaging the administrative procedures. So I would probably suggest for the next meeting or when it gets approved for the second reading, if you can kind of see what to kind of something that would prevent, it's not the administrative procedures is not something that the board writes. That's what you do as a general manager, Kevin. So in terms of like having the discussion is great. But the board would need to kind of go look at the corresponding board policies to make any changes that would kind of affect that administrative procedure instead of it becoming a board policy.
I think I see what you mean.
I hope I said that right.
I think what you're saying is that normally the board would look at the board policy that this AP derives from, and that the board would not normally act on. In this case, I think the way he's got it worded and stuff, if we see the administrative policy, is to make sure nothing gets changed without us knowing about it, since we're ultimately
right. Yeah, I really like the idea of the APs being shown to the board
and the public.
Or the public, and the public. I just wanted to kind of emphasize that the board doesn't change administrative procedures. The board would do it through board policy, instead of, the administrative procedures is what how the general manager carries things out. And if there was any issue with an AP going forward, a board member can ask to take a look at a certain policy, just to see if they want.
But it does it since any new APs would end up coming before us just to read as board members. That way,
Right.
we'd be aware of something and say, "Hey, I think you got a problem here," and that's what it's intended for. And I think it works fine. But you've got a very good point, Jordan. That normally we wouldn't rewrite the AP; he would, as manager. But at least,
and he could do it. He could do it by board direction, but really the board should focus on the board policies.
like board guidance, I would say, than direction.
Yeah, guidance.
I think, we go, yeah, you've almost hit it. You just, I suggest the suggestion of make this minor change and it'll read better with the, it'll work better with the board policy, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And, there's nothing that says, I mean, the idea is if it's drastically different from what the board policy states, or is something is part of board policy, but it just doesn't make sense, or something comes up randomly, changes to the board policy, how the board should handle it.
Yeah, you're right about that.
Any other?
Just a quick question then.
Yeah.
Would it, because the consent calendar is one place. I deliberately made it kind of vague where it was going to be. It could also be in the manager's report.
True. So don't leave it open.
I think it would be a little bit. I think people would it pops out if it's on consent.
Gotcha.
Right? And it's just a receive the report.
Yeah.
So it doesn't necessarily have to be, it doesn't have to necessarily be approved, but the board can be like approving, seeing it.
You got a point. It doesn't even need to be on the consent calendar by the logic you just put forward, because why do we have to consent? Well, mainly we're here just to read.
Receive. So you're voting to receive the report or receive the changes of the AP, then to approve the actual AP.
Yeah, we're acknowledging and receiving it and saying, okay, fine. But you're right. It may not belong in the consent calendar in some sense, but give it some thought.
Yeah. So I mean, it's not gonna really matter to me, but I think it's how you feel like doing it. All right. Any other discussions? Seeing none, we will go to number 9, first reading of new board policy 3015, recreation space usage. Kevin?
All right. So last meeting, the board had requested for the board perk to be kind of extended to other non-board members. And so that's what I did. I made this policy, but I figured it makes a little bit more sense to really make a policy about how the recreation space is used. So the first thing we've done is essentially define the recreation spaces under number 1. And then the second thing we did is put priorities, saying that yes, the priority for these spaces is for district programs, events, and other operational needs. So that could be training, for example. And then the third space is that the public can rent the space that's appropriate for such rentals when it's not being used under Part 2. So the board establishes the fee and deposit schedule by resolution, which I think we'll probably have to update sometime next year. And the general manager is responsible for administering that and making sure there's proper supervision, risk management, things of that nature. And Part C, this is the part where it opens up to the board perk opens up to other people, which is that free community events may be eligible for a separate pricing schedule to be determined by the board. So let's say the board said, okay, for free community events, the pricing is going to be free. Or when I say free community events, that's free to attend community events. So the board can make a fee schedule that such types of events could cost $25 an hour if we wanted to break even. Or it could be completely free, in which case it would just be the cost of staffing. And just so that you would have an idea of how this might play out, I made a sample administrative procedure for how this might unfold, right? So the first thing we would do is make sure that we define what a community benefit is. And some of these, it's a little bit hard to define a community benefit. There's so many different varying levels of it. If I donate $20 to a cancer fund, is that a community benefit event? Or does it have to meet a certain threshold? So those things, unfortunately, we can't really gauge. It's too subjective. But I figured that having a free and open to all members, and of course advertised on several spaces, so that if someone wanted to just have a pool party, they're going to have to understand that other people are going to come. The reservation would be handled like this: first come, first serve, to avoid getting just overloaded with free community events. We would have a maximum of 1 per week. Of course, we can change that if it was to get out of hand. We could, and again, this is administrative procedure, so I could change it pretty quickly. Make it less if it's too troublesome. And I put in just a little bit in there just to avoid abuse, which is that the chair and the GM both have to agree that this community event is qualifying. There wouldn't, we wouldn't be able to stop anyone from using it if it was a community event, which means that there could be political rallies, there could be religious events, there could be clubs that maybe have controversial sort of teachings, and that's, again, in their minds, that's a public benefit. So it would be a little bit tough, and we have to open ourselves up to that under this policy.
But that doesn't prevent them from having events there. It's just the free,
right? Right. So there would be no preventing that kind of stuff.
I'm really glad that you put the example AP, because this is, if a board member thinks that one of the definitions of what could be a benefit event, community benefit event, that is in conflict with what the board would want, the board members would add a subsection to the board policies, and board policy 3015 3C would have something under it to clarify something that might not be, if something's ambiguous, or if there's a difference of opinion on what is considered a community benefit.
Yeah.
The other thing is, if you look at 2G, insurance, I realize this is an AP, so we're not really passing it, but you would want insurance for any event. And we can't have 150 guests here, even pre-COVID days, in any. So Ron pointed that out to me when we were walking the dog tonight. I go, you're right. We've never had
We're expanding up, Steve.
No, we've done it. We did it twice, at least twice.
Oh, okay. Well,
we had 200 people in the hall.
Any event,
wow.
Almost every, every person who rents our facilities should supply proof of insurance, and it's just the way it should be for our protection as a district. Everybody else asks for it, we should ask for it for the same reason.
A lot of these criteria could definitely be a community benefit event, like, let's say, senior lunch program or senior nutrition program. That's technically a free benefit event, but having it regularly, I didn't see it. Am I not looking right? Is there something in the policy that says how many times Or is
Yeah,
that
once per week. A maximum of one community event per week, and
Yeah.
that's not per person. That's the, like
Okay.
in total.
I would modify that, suggest modifying that since it's an AP, unless, add the wordage, unless the board approves more.
if there's if there's kind of like I don't know, I can't figure this out, it might be good to bring it to the board.
Mhm, mhm, mhm.
is getting back to one of the not suggestions but examples you gave, maybe around election time, all of a sudden they'll want to hold 6 candidate events to meet the candidates in the same month, and we go, well,
Mhm.
yeah, that meets the community need, and so just because it exceeds 4, it's timely, and we can't put them off till next month because the election's over. So that's why I was saying, put something in there to allow the board to allow more, but generally speaking, it would take board approval to have more than 4 per month, because we're
I
giving
see
up
what you're saying.
Right.
Yeah.
paid, we're giving up. This is like our third priority for community events. First,
Especially if they decide to host on Sunday. There's oftentimes a 5th Sunday.
yeah.
Right. That makes sense. Yeah.
And I like the fact that you've come up with an event rate which basically is neutral, and I've always thought that was a good idea. The board could choose, the board or the general manager with the board president's approval could choose to waive that in the case
Oh,
of
there's Jenny. I see Jenny.
in the
Sorry,
case,
Oh,
Steve.
the case that comes to mind that happened for that was we had a previous board member whose a kid wanted to use the hall for a memorial, and we said sure, and we could charge them, and even though it cost us about $25 or $50, we just said fine. He served for a number of years on the board, long before anybody who was on the board had ever been on the board. I go, okay, I don't know him, but fine. That's a nice use of it. And I used it once for a memorial, but I got to thinking about this and said, $25 an hour is fair to charge board members and employees to do this, because that's just cost.
Right.
Because the other conversation we had offline was, right now we don't have to charge it because I happen to have a key. I'm hosting the event, so I can open and close and set the alarm. But going forward, Kevin's pointed out that AP may change.
Right.
We no longer have keys, although I would argue that's a good thing to be able to walk in anytime and make sure nothing nefarious is going on. That's the whole reason for having a key. So in my mind, the worst case is the reason, and luckily I've never seen anything I shouldn't have seen. So, but anyway, I've gone on too long already. I'll get back to the meeting.
And I just wanted to add to your point, Steve, that, as this, we don't know if people are going to be coming to do it anyways, right? But there's going to be holes that Kevin sees in the AP, and and adjust it as he sees fit with presentation to the board, as long as the AP is the guide, to that it's fair across the board for all events.
And this is a very good start at being fair. I think you've done a great job on this, because
yeah.
not much I can disagree with other than insurance for any event, not just 150. And thank you. I didn't know you had 200 twice.
Well, the thing I'm most worried about with this is when you have things that are kind of thresholds of community events.
Mm-hmm.
So like I think the biggest example is someone wants to have a pool party for themselves, and so they say they're going to donate to cancer, but I mean, realistically, we're not going to follow up on that, and so someone could essentially just get a lower rate, and the only thing they have to do is allow other people to come into their event. That's it.
What is the current
and there's really
rate?
not a way to stop that. What's that?
What is the current rate?
So it depends when you do it, All right. So for example, the most expensive rate is $80 for non-residents on Saturday evenings and Sunday evenings and Friday evenings. So potentially you could be getting the rec hall for $25 an hour, right? And so that's a pretty significant difference, especially during peak hour.
Mm.
I don't find it anywhere else in this, at all. Even $80 an hour is cheap.
Yeah. Now, if you're a resident, it's $60 an hour during the peak times. And if you do non-peak times, it's actually $40 an hour. So $40 an hour is more for like weekdays during the day, and actually all weekdays except for Friday evenings, and then also weekend mornings. So that's why you'll see yoga doing like Sunday mornings, is because it's the lower price, and then mostly weekdays.
And to kind of wrap this up, there are so many examples. Campbell's Community Center. There's so many examples of how different entities manage the use of facilities. So this can be just an ongoing, checking out what other agencies are doing, in case something comes up that you're not thinking about. All right. Any other comments, Jenny? You're on mute. Can someone unmute Jenny?
I think you're the host.
Oh, is it me?
Yeah.
She can unmute herself.
Oh, I don't think I'm host.
Oh, really?
MHS is host. Sorry, Jenny.
Miriam's host.
Give me a minute.
I get to be host.
Hang on, Jen.
Okay.
Oh, I just unmuted myself.
Oh, okay.
I must have muted. I'm sorry. I'm so dumb. I must have muted myself by accident. Oh, okay. So I'm sorry. This is okay. And I even put my hand up, but I had muted myself. Oh, okay. No wonder I've been out of tech for 20 years. Anyway, yes, this sounds like a really cool thing. I'm glad that Kevin put different examples of possibility. I kept thinking, like, just as an example, it would be like, let's say somebody wanted to have like an orchid show. Okay, they have orchid plants, and a lot of people like to just have displays, and people could come in and the public could look at them, because a lot of people collect things. They might have antiques or something, and it might be something, a really interesting topic. Somebody might have historic items, or collect cash registers or something. I mean, or seeds. And I think that's really neat to know that you could set up a display you could have the quarters, set it up, and then the public could come and learn about it, especially if it was a really interesting hobby that someone had.
Right.
And I think that's really cool, and it is a public benefit. And it's nice to know that they had things. When I was a kid, I actually collected antique bottles, and I used to display them at the local library. I know people are dumb with teenagers, but it was a really fun thing to do. So yeah, I think this is really cool. I think it looks like a really potential lot of fun, and something that would be of great interest to the general public. Very good.
Thank you, Jenny. And I want to, that's exactly, she said exactly what we're thinking, or at least I'm thinking. You said this was a sample administrative procedure, but it's a great start. And, ideas can change, as we hopefully open up more soon. But for example, the Campbell Community Center, they give me nonprofit rates when I host Democratic Party elections. So I mean, there's so many different kind of ways that you could take it. But anyway, it's good to have, set criteria that folks need to have in order to get the special community event rate or a free event. Steve?
Quick question. The camp community place, was it about the same size as our facility? What did they do for the Democratic guys?
Well, no, but it had a large parking lot, so that was helpful.
Yeah.
But we had 1,200 people that year,
Oh.
so it was helpful to have a larger parking lot.
Yeah. So as a nonprofit Democratic Party event, did they charge you guys $25 an hour or more than?
Well, no, it was more, but they did charge us the nonprofit rate. So it wasn't free, but it wasn't the regular rate that someone would have.
That's my question.
What
was it rate for obviously a larger facility?
Yeah, so I mean, I used the Orchard Banquet Hall last time, and that's probably what I'm going to be using in January again. So I guess it's just like a not-for-profit. I don't know if technically the Democratic Party is not-for-profit, but their funds, they have, this not really political activity and running the business side of the party, and then you have PAC money where you give to candidates and whatnot. So they do have a 501c3 in addition to C4.
So my question is, what is the nonprofit rate for the Camo Community Center? Just out of curiosity.
It depends on what facility you're using.
Is it $500? Is it?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, I don't know off the top of my head, but it's a drastic difference having a nonprofit rate. So
Yeah. I can remember. Okay, I'll call them and ask them. I'm just how it compares to our.
It is on their website. They do have a list of prices.
Okay. Yeah, I recognize they have more than one room probably there. So and sizes and different areas.
Right.
So
there's several options.
There's not one rate. I see what you're saying. Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm. All right. Seeing no further discussion, let's go to number 10, discussion regarding Cupertino Parks and Recreation recommendations to merge Rancho. Do you have an update, Kevin?
No update. They're not going to provide it yet. The recommendation yet.
So what I asked Kevin to add this to the agenda in order to hopefully direct, for the board to direct Kevin the ability to submit on the board's behalf a letter of a lot of the stuff that we brought up last meeting. Miriam and I are leaving the board, and I was hoping to have a letter drafted, but I think if giving Kevin the ability to kind of look at every single issue that we have with the rush to judgment that the Parks and Rec Commission had, I think that we could convince the city council to push it back onto the commission to actually get some answers on how finances will work, how taxes will, the Rancho Rinconada residents still going to be forking over the investment that Rancho has made and will continue to make towards the district. There's so many issues that we should and can bring up, before the city council accept the issue. Does anybody have objections to doing that, Kevin?
Oh, not an objection, but we did go over some of the potential avenues for the letter. I don't know if you wanted me to go over those.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think the three possibly most powerful objections is that the first one is that the whole duplication of services leading to inefficiencies argument, which is the core of LAFCO's zero sphere of influence argument, should have been identified. These inefficiencies should have been identified in their special study. And to be frank, those inefficiencies that they show are just not very compelling. They're not. The second thing is the Cupertino Parks and Recreation Commission, by their own admission, described their survey as completely inadequate. And so I think that, coming to any kind of judgment with a survey that they themselves describe as completely inadequate is probably not a good avenue to go. And I think that it can be argued that either a true survey should happen, or they can wait for the strategic plan, which will certainly address this issue, and there will be outreach where we can kind of figure out what that direction will be. And I think that's information the city could use as well.
And I'm guessing, Kevin, that this is not all that we're going to be. I do think that we should lay out all our arguments,
right?
And the reason why I'm hoping that the board gives direction to Kevin to write this letter is because hopefully we can submit it before December's meeting.
Yeah, if they even present it in December, I'm still trying to nail down when it's going to be sent.
I mean, it could still be sent to the city even if it's not being heard for a while.
Yeah, that's true. The third argument is that I think the city has identified two needs in their general plan. The first one being more parks in the west side of Cupertino, and the second one being the need for aquatics in Cupertino. I think that there's a good argument that taking over Rancho doesn't actually provide more parks because this park already exists.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And the second thing is that the location is literally touching San Jose on two sides. It's really not well located for servicing the entirety of Cupertino. And quite frankly, in the summer, there is not much room for more programs.
Right.
It's already running 7 days a week, dawn to dusk. And I think those arguments, I think, are probably the most compelling and would hopefully be the most persuasive for City Council.
And the fact that we're going to be starting the strategic plan. We've been working on board policies to help the board govern more efficiently and effectively. So I definitely wanted to give input to Kevin for a letter, and if anybody else wants to make sure something is said or included that isn't.
I'll speak when you guys want the public to go.
I'm sorry?
Oh, I'll speak for the public whenever you guys are done with the board stuff.
Yeah. Any questions from the board before public comment? Public comments, Denny?
Yes, thank you. I really agree with the comments that Kevin made in his potential letter and with what the board has been talking about, you guys. And I have been going, it is weird with Zoom. Okay. I have been following this via city council meetings, Park and Rec, and then with the Zoom meetings, I've been attending them. Park and Rec meets, I think, 2 times a month or something. So I've been coming along with this and then making comments as I see fit. And Kevin's been present there and other board members. And I agree, I concur with what Kevin has observed in terms of, I believe that there was sort of a rush to judgment here. I mean, I did go to the county stuff too on this, and I'm very, very concerned as a long-term community member from, I've lived in this area for a long time in Rancho, as a lot of you all have. And I'm concerned about 2 things. One of them is that we were, when the whole system was established, we were in the county. Okay. we've only been in the city for 20 years, and sometimes some of the comments that people make from the Park and Rec Commission and the Park and Rec Department is that they think that we've been a part of Cupertino for the last since 1952. And I mean, it's just more of a historical thing because a lot of these people don't know anything about Rancho when they annexed the pool facilities, etc. So we get very strange comments like, well, Cupertino should have always been running it. Well, that couldn't have happened 20 years ago.
Right.
You know, so this, and I won't take up much more of your time, but one of the other things is that I do not want the, what is it, 500, what are the assets? Is it 500,000? I don't want that lost into the Cupertino General Fund. That has to be whatever they're doing. What is that number? It's 500,000 or 1 million. It's the asset.
It's $1 million. It's over $1 million.
That to me, and my husband had said this too, that asset has to remain in the complex, or if it's taken over by the city, it has to, an equivalent assets, the $1 million has to remain in the neighborhood or into the pool Rancho recreation complex. It cannot go into the general fund, and I don't think it would disappear, and we would have nothing in the neighborhood. So I'm saying that as like somebody in the neighborhood looking at this facility as a neighborhood asset, a 70-year-old or 65-year-old asset. It would be lost in the Cupertino General Fund and gone, and the neighborhood would get nothing from it. So that's a hard reckoning point because it's money, it's monetary. And everything else Kevin has said, I think works to the situation that I think this is a rush to judgment. I think that various people and groups in Cupertino are trying to solve different groups' problems by taking over the Rancho pool complex. And it's kind of like you had settlers coming in to Oklahoma for the land grab, the oil grab, etc. We have it, we're going to take it, but we have to make sure that the assets remain and that the neighborhood is fairly rewarded or compensated for any loss. And like Kevin said, this pool system is running 24/7 and there's no extra parking, and it's so far removed, it can't solve any of the problems that Cupertino Park and Rec or other Cupertino departments have. It's not the fail-safe to solve all of their city problems. But to hear them talk, it's like it can solve all our problems. And I think there's about 3 to 4 different groups that are trying to get it for different reasons. I'm just being the devil's advocate here. So anyway, I think you guys are very smart to state a letter there. My things of Park and Rec is I think COVID has kind of hosed them down a little bit as much as Cupertino. It's slowed everyone down. But yeah, I think it's good to get the letter out there so that they know that and then also too, the survey was horrible. I did it. It was awful. There were 20 responses from one household. And a lot of the people that responded didn't even live in Rancho Rinconada and had never. And I think they were outside of the city. So yes, poor response. A lot of people in Rancho don't even know what the city was trying to do. And I think that there needs to be, they need to proceed along. If this is going to happen, they have to do a lot more legwork. But anyway, those are just my comments. But I want to see, I don't want the complex, I don't want it taken over by Cupertino. I have my problems with how Blackberry Farms run. Okay, whatever, that's my problem. But I do want to make sure that the neighborhood and you guys are fairly compensated because this thing is an asset and it cannot be taken without compensation given back to the neighborhood and to the people who depend on the pool complex, plus the people that work there. Anyway, thank you very much. Those are my comments.
Thank you, Jenny. And yes, I appreciate everything you said. And I think the best way of doing this is to put all these issues into a letter. I mean, instead of saying, oh, these are our top 3, let's put it all down. Have that, make sure that they know that we're taking it seriously. If we do not respond, or we don't respond sooner than later, they might think, well, the board's not interested in keeping it.
Jordan, can I just make one comment? Because I think that having seen these people, different groups here communicating for the last year over this, I think Kevin's thing of having 3 main points is a good way to start out, so that they don't they don't get not confused. That these are the 3 working points right now, whatever you decide to be, so that they actually read them and they don't get bogged down in the details. But I'm just going to point out, I think that Kevin had a good gut level, because he's been going to these things, that, hey, these are our 3 top things. And then if you need to have more information, maybe have the other things. But I think it's a lot easier to communicate with them if it's kind of like you were having ending a war. These are our 3 top concerns, and then work back from that. So anyway, you don't have to do what I suggested. I just threw that in there, and I'll be quiet. Thank you.
So I appreciate your comments. To kind of go over that real quick, the problem that I see is we have a brand new board next month. So and so I don't know if we should.
They're up to speed. Maybe they're not up to speed on it. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, it's the city council members' duty to read material. That's their job. It's like us, we have to come prepared to the meeting. But because 4 out of the 5 new members, we don't know what we don't know what they're going to be doing, right? Or understanding. Right. I think that if we just, put everything out on the table and send it to the city, it'll also show that we're thinking of it. The fact that, if it works out, it works out, but here are all the issues that you have to think about before doing it. And the Parks and Recreation Commission, Parks and Rec Commission did nothing of that. Did not even look at how it would affect the city financially. It didn't go over where would the taxes go, or will Rancho Rinconada residents still maintain subsidizing that facility that is not shared citywide? There's so many. What happens to the parcel in the district that is still San Jose? There's still so many different questions, and I think that if we put it down all first, the city council should be reading it. It might not excite members of the community, but I think the main reason why we're in this debacle in the first place is because of personality conflicts. So and since we don't know what's going to happen after this meeting, I think it would be nice for Kevin to draft something and maybe get our feedback before sending
it. I support that. I think I've been quiet. I support all of those points that Kevin brought up, plus Jennifer had a couple more to add to them. Just make the city council, who I haven't looked to see who actually got elected. I know Wei Feng and not Jen, but anyway, whoever makes up the council and whatever their agendas are, and each of them has their own agenda. I know that. We can at least tell them, hey, these are the issues, and as Kevin said, the Parks and Rec department wasn't really up to speed on these issues.
Right.
I think the way he said it is really good. And you're right. We'll review it and see if there's anything major left out. Keep it simple, keep it short. But I agree with you. It's a good time to do it as an outgoing board of 3 that agree among ourselves that this is a good idea. And then the more people I deal with starting next month, if it turns out they have totally different concerns, fine. At least we've said what needs to be said. So I think it's a good idea. I'll be available anytime to review and criticize. But getting it out before the next meeting, I see your point, because it'll also get to them for something to read as new council members for the first meeting they have, where they're going to be totally overwhelmed anyway if they're new.
Right. Yeah, we should just overwhelm them more. Kevin?
So am I understanding the directive to, well, I understand the directive to make the letter. No big deal. I got that. Is that to come back with the letter for next month, or just to come up with the letter and then just send it out?
Directing you, giving you permission to submit a letter talking about a lot of the issues that we're, concerned about.
Okay. I think I understand the directive, and with very few exceptions, it'll focus on the points, and I'm also adding parking, which Jenny brought up.
It's a good point.
That'd be good.
The other is, does anybody have a reason why? I was thinking all 4 of us can sign it, one way. He wrote it, all 3 board members can sign it, and then it says, hey, it's not just one group that, complaining.
Right.
I think,
and highlight the work that this board has been doing in terms of policy and the strategic plan,
which addresses LAFCO, but they don't know shit about LAFCO. They're all new.
Miriam?
I think this is a great idea, particularly, maybe not so much for the commission, but for the new board. It's not, they have a long blank on history to this point, which would take a great amount of education for them to really come up to speed, and have knowledge about this. But if we could, as Jordan said, identify our main issue, it would at least give them something to grasp onto, and if necessary, could have future follow-up on what that means, or supporting evidence for them to review if they need to come up to greater speed. But I think it's a critical issue for Rancho and this new board, and if they aren't able to grasp it, could be pretty well a short tenure for them.
So does that mean that this letter would be on the next agenda as well? So I can send it and have it on the agenda, or just send it? Or?
I would use it as an update later on, maybe under the new board member orientation.
Yeah, orientation.
Just to kind of get them up to speed on several issues that we've been dealing with, and get them up to speed on the strategic plan and all that. I wouldn't bring it back next month. It's going to be their first meeting, and they're not going to know anything. So,
well,
that
I don't know if you have to do the whole letter or a whole bit, but it could be highlighted as something that they need to look at in the short term, among other things. But to me, it seems pretty primary. If we can't retain control over it, then it's like I said, a short history for them, and they probably really need to come up to speed with that in terms of the strategic plan and all the rest of it, because it's all sort of a piece.
Yeah, absolutely agree with you.
The other thing, the other reason I like your idea, even though I hadn't heard of it before tonight, is this is a much better way to respond I know I'll get nowhere, and that's why I haven't responded to anything, any of the shit that popped up on Nextdoor, because I know that leads nowhere. Whereas a letter, there's no way to respond to it other than it's written to
Right.
me, a letter by them. So it's a great idea. That's another reason why it needs to be done. Because
And to be honest, we have a policy now in place that deals with legislative priorities, and this is, an issue that is or could be on our legislative advocacy
yeah,
policy, and
yeah.
which would allow, I'm guessing Steve's going to be the chair, allows Steve and Kevin to, if there is a follow-up letter or follow-up actions, they have the board policy to back it up.
Right, and we have this as a primary document to start from, and say, yeah, we remember that letter we sent you last month or the month before. Here's some further points. We're saying what what the five of us who are logged in right now all believe, which is it's important. If we can keep this thing running, we're doing a better job than the city of Cupertino can at the current
Right.
point. We're
Right.
open. So
Well, thank you everybody for this wonderful discussion and meeting. I've really enjoyed, even though I didn't really want to come back, I enjoyed working with you guys for a year and a half. Miriam, you've been here for so many years, so thank you for your service, and I hope you can attend next month. Welcome the new board members, but I really appreciate all of you, and we did a lot of work this year, so thank you.
Well, we appreciate you being dragged kicking and screaming to be
Barking and screaming.
whatever.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I appreciate you too. In the old days, the last person we got a resolution through the Board of Supervisors was for Zoe Lofgren when she left the board. So I think that's going to happen with now that we're under maybe under city rule, at least partially. But anyway, we'll see what happens. But I share your thanks to both you guys and to Jennifer and to our amazing staff who are being ably guided by Kevin. And like I say, we're providing services nobody else in the city is, because we got our shit more together than they do.
Right.
Living proof. We're doing good. And I get pissed off saying Nextdoor's nastiness. But I say can't respond. It'll just descend into hell right away. So this letter's a good service. And I hope I get to see you again sometime.
And this is our last meeting unless I decide to call it special.
Ooh.
Who knows? Who knows?
Thanksgiving. You guys have to vote on this for Kevin, don't you?
So Jenny, your hand's up.
Oh, is it? Okay. You guys have to vote on this to tell Kevin to send this, don't you?
No, it's just a board directive.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay.
Yeah.
No, if you want to call a special meeting to come back and have Thanksgiving, that'd be great.
So Jenny, just to clarify, so we passed a board policy that gives the district manager and the chair the ability to advocate on behalf of the district within guiding principles that is reviewed once a year, and so that already is in place. But definitely wanted the feedback, make sure that we're all on board with it.
No, I think that's a good plan. I've seen that I've seen that work before in other places. So.
Yeah, especially during the governor's budget, there was last minute issues that really affected us, and because we didn't have a policy, it was hard for the district to weigh in. We did, but we wanted to put it in policy. Kevin, your hand's up.
Oh, that was from a while ago. Sorry.
Okay.
Put it down.
And any last words, Miriam?
Just thank you all. It was great, and yeah, good to work with you. And Kevin's going to keep us posted on this letter. Is that
Yep.
Yeah. And we can get
Um,
feedback directly to him.
Yep. I'll once it's done, I'll definitely it would be cool to get the signatures.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. So
I gotta
is
move.
there a second?
okay? Second.
Damn, she said.
All in favor? Roll call. Roll call.
Director Eldridge,
Yes for the last time.
Director Solo,
Ditto.
Bye bye.
Director Waslowski.
It's not the last, but it is a yes.
All right.
All right.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Bye
good
bye, Jordan. Bye bye,
All right.
Miriam.
See you
Come
guys
back
soon.
and zoom
Yeah.
in and see us again.
Yes. I want to know what the drama is going to unfold next month.
Okay. Send
Oh
me
my goodness.
Yeah, send me the link.
Jordan, can we see the dog that interrupted us?
Oh,
I'm curious. I mean, I like dogs. Oh,
Cute.
Whoa.
Oh.
yes.
It's
He's
not
just he's a Shih Tzu and he acts like it too. No, but my sister brought her dog Hatchback. I think that's what it's called. Who's kind of rambunctious puppy. So they've been fighting. So I have my dog in here.
Cool.
So the
Oh,
barking
Nice.
sound was probably her dog.
right.
we're having fun.
All right.
All
Good
right.
night.
Well, the meeting is adjourned.
Bye bye. Happy
Thank